Love in Cell D12 by Wynn Valentine. A Brooklyn romantic comedy about bad data, thin walls, and one very judgmental Greyhound. Chapter 1. The Triple Match Anomaly. Mira Venkataraman had always believed romance would be more tolerable if everyone agreed to submit quarterly reports. Nothing invasive, nothing dramatic. Just a clean, standardized overview. Emotional availability, communication patterns, relationship goals, known defects, projected growth, whether or not they owned a mattress frame. Especially the mattress frame. The absence of one was not always a deal breaker, technically. But in Mira's experience, it correlated strongly with phrases like, "I'm just seeing where life takes me," and "I'm not really a label person." Both of which belonged in the same locked cabinet as expired yogurt and men who described themselves as sapiosexual because they once read half of Sapiens. At 10:47 on a rainy Thursday night, Mira sat cross-legged on her couch in her Brooklyn apartment, wearing noise-canceling headphones over one ear and a turmeric clay mask that had begun to tighten her face into the expression of a disappointed statue. Her laptop glowed on the coffee table. A mug of ginger tea steamed beside it. On the screen, her dating spreadsheet waited with the soft menace of an unpaid bill. The file name was Mira, Romantic Pipeline, Quarter 3, Final, use this one, .xlsx. The fact that there were 5 other files with almost identical names in the folder was between Mira and God. She clicked into the newest row and entered the evening's date. Name, Devlin. App, Kindling. Occupation, founder, technically unemployed. Opening conversational gambit. You have intense spreadsheet energy. Chemistry, 2 out of 10. Red flags, 7. Yellow flags, 4. Green flags, had clean fingernails. Follow-up potential, no. Reason, explained blockchain to bartender. Mira paused, considered, then added. Additional notes, used phrase feminine efficiency. Survived only because restaurant knives were dull. She highlighted the row in a bruised, authoritative red. Across the coffee table, her phone buzzed. Nisha. Mira accepted the video call, and her cousin's face filled the screen at an angle that suggested she was lying on the floor or possibly trapped beneath furniture. Before you say anything, Nisha announced, I know you are updating the Sexcel. It's not called the Sexcel. It is in my heart. It's a relationship decision support workbook. That sentence has never once been invited to brunch. Mira clicked save. Do you need something? Yes. I need to know if the man from tonight cried. No. Did you? Also no. Then why do you look like you just fired a beloved intern? Mira glanced toward the dark window, where rain traced trembling lines down the glass. He told me I'd be happier if I stopped trying to control everything. Nisha winced. Ah. Then he asked if I'd considered microdosing. Double ah. Then he said my dating profile made me seem intimidating, but optimizable. Nisha sat up so fast the camera blurred. I'm calling the police. I handled it. Did you use your voice that makes bank tellers apologize? I said I had an early meeting. Mira. And then I left while he was in the bathroom. Nisha's face rearranged itself into pride. Personal growth. I thought so. Mira took a sip of tea, grimaced because it had gone lukewarm, and turned back to her laptop. The apartment around her was tidy in the deliberate way of a person who did not trust the universe to behave unless every object had been assigned a permanent location. Books arranged by subject, shoes aligned under the bench, a ceramic bowl by the door containing keys, lip balm, and one emergency packet of almonds. Outside her apartment door, someone in the hallway laughed too loudly. A man's voice floated through the thin wall from 4C, followed by a thump, a muffled curse, and what sounded like a chair losing a fight. Mira closed her eyes. The unit next door had been empty for 3 blissful weeks after Brad, a DJ with no visible income and a tragic commitment to incense, moved to Bushwick to be closer to his sound. Mira had cherished every moment of the vacancy. No bass at 2 a.m, no overheard breakups, no mysterious wall tapping that Brad insisted was the building breathing. Apparently, the peace was ending. "Was that your building?" Nisha asked. "New neighbor, I think." "Ooh, maybe he's hot. Or maybe he's a drummer. Both can be true." "Not in my lease." Mira's phone buzzed again, this time with a dating app notification. New like on Kindling. She should ignore it. She had a strict post-date decompression policy. No swiping within 12 hours of romantic disappointment, no texting after 1 glass of wine, and no evaluating men while wearing a face mask because the clay made her more judgmental than usual. Still, the notification hovered. Nisha saw her expression change. "Who is it?" "No one." "That is your data has become interesting face." "I don't have that face." "You absolutely do. Your eyebrows become consultants." Mira opened the app. A man smiled up from the screen. Dark curls, warm brown skin, a crooked nose that had maybe been broken once, a grin with far too much confidence in the goodness of humanity. He was sitting on a stoop beside a long, narrow greyhound, wearing a mustard yellow sweater and an expression of aristocratic suffering. Calder, 33, community arts coordinator, amateur bread enthusiast, friend to anxious dogs. "I believe most disasters are just stories arriving early." Mira stared. "No," she said. Nisha leaned closer to her own camera. "No what?" Mira swiped through his photos. Calder laughing in front of a mural. Calder holding a tray of burned cookies with theatrical despair. Calder wearing a paper crown beside a group of children in homemade costumes. Calder hiking, badly dressed for it. Calder and the Greyhound again, this time both under a tiny umbrella. His prompts were somehow worse. Typical Sunday. Bad coffee, good bagels, laundry I forgot in the dryer, apologizing to my dog for leaving the house. I'm weirdly good at making friends with people's grandmothers and carrying too many grocery bags in one trip. A shower thought I recently had. What if pigeons know we're broke? Mira recoiled. Nisha gasped. Wait, he's cute. He uses whimsy as a structural support. That sounds fixable. Nothing about this man is fixable. Look at this. Mira held up the phone. He believes disasters are stories arriving early. That's adorable. That is how people end up stranded in Vermont with someone named Banjo. Nisha tilted her head. Why are you mad at him like he already disappointed you? I'm not mad. I'm assessing. You said no like he walked into your apartment wearing shoes. Mira ignored this and checked his stats. No obvious deal breakers. No shirtless mirror selfie. No fish. No mention of good vibes only, though the aura of the phrase hovered nearby like a fruit fly. She moved to reject him, then paused. Something about his face tugged at her. Not attraction exactly. Attraction was too simplistic a word, too easily weaponized by people with dimples and unresolved attachment issues. This was irritation with a pulse. Her thumb hovered over the X. Mira, Nisha said warningly. What? Do not spreadsheet him before you even talk to him. I'm not. You just opened the spreadsheet. Mira looked down. She had, in fact, opened the spreadsheet. That was muscle memory. Your muscles need therapy. Mira created a new row. Name, Calder. App, Kindling. Occupation, Community Arts Coordinator. Initial impression, aggressively sunny. Risk factors, dog sweater, disaster optimism, possible theater-adjacent energy. Notes, too many exclamation points implied despite current punctuation levels. Nisha groaned. You are going to die alone under a weighted blanket. A weighted blanket is a perfectly respectable end. You could just match with him. I could also put a fork in the toaster. You once matched with a man whose bio said, "Ask me about my knife collection." That was before I added the weapons column. Mira swiped left. The app accepted her rejection with a tidy little animation. A strange flicker of regret passed through her. She deleted it immediately. Done, she said. You're impossible. I'm efficient. Same prison, different paint. Mira was about to respond when another notification appeared. This time from a different app. Someone likes you on Pairwise. Mira frowned. That's odd. What? I haven't opened Pairwise in 2 weeks. Maybe Love missed you. Love can email. She opened the app. And there he was again. Same curls, same grin, different photos. This profile was slightly more restrained, as if Calder had been advised by a woman friend to stop sounding like a golden retriever with Wi-Fi. Calder Vale, 33. I run arts programs for kids, overcommit to potlucks, and recently adopted a Greyhound who may be smarter than me. Together we could find the best dumplings in the city and pretend our laundry isn't still sitting in the dryer. Mira sat up straighter. Nisha whispered, delighted. Oh my God. No. Yes. No. The algorithm has spoken. The algorithm is a drunk intern with access to my loneliness. Mira, 2 apps. That means nothing. People cross-post. It's not romance, it's marketing saturation. Look at his dog. I am immune to narrow dogs. You are not immune to any dog. You once cried because a corgi in Prospect Park had a backpack. He looked employed. Nisha clasped her hands under her chin. Match with him. No. Message him. Absolutely not. Send a simple hello. I would rather send my social security number to a pop-up. Mira opened a new sheet in the workbook. Nisha's face fell. Oh no. Mira named the tab. Calder Vale Duplicate Match Analysis. You're making him a tab? This is an anomaly. This is a man. For now. She entered both profiles into the sheet, listing differences in wording, photo selection, perceived emotional volatility, and probability of ukulele ownership. Pairwise Calder received a slightly better rating than Kindling Calder because his second profile contained fewer signs of uncontrolled whimsy. Still, the dog's sweater remained troubling. She rejected him again. There, she said. Nisha stared at her with the solemn disappointment of a saint in a Renaissance painting. You have rejected the same cute man twice in under 4 minutes. Consistency is important. So is joy. Joy is not a dating strategy. It is literally the main one. Another thump came through the wall. Then the squeal of something heavy scraping across the floor next door. Mira flinched. From somewhere beyond the plaster, a male voice called, muffled but cheerful. Sorry, we're all learning. Mira slowly turned her head toward the wall. Nisha's eyes narrowed. Was that your new neighbor? Yes. He sounds cute. He sounds liable. The male voice began humming. Badly. Not normal badly, confident badly. The kind of badly that did not know it was being badly, a full-bodied, chest-forward assault on melody. Mira's jaw tightened. "Oh," Nisha said softly. "This is going to be fun." "No, it isn't." The humming rose into actual singing. The song was familiar, but only because he was murdering it loudly enough for identification. "I want to dance with somebody," delivered with the pitch accuracy of a filing cabinet falling downstairs. Mira removed one headphone, as though perhaps the sound had been a hallucination. It was not. Through the wall, the singer launched into the chorus with the emotional commitment of a man auditioning for a musical in an empty subway car. Mira stood. "Mira," Nisha said. Mira picked up the broom from beside the kitchen. "Mira, no. This is a boundary. It is a broom. Sometimes a boundary has a handle." She marched to the shared wall and rapped the broom against it 3 times. The singing stopped. Blessed silence. Then, after a beat, 3 knocks came back. Friendly. Curious. Almost musical. Mira stared at the wall in disbelief. The voice called, "Hello?" Nisha made a sound like a tea kettle achieving consciousness. Mira leaned toward the wall. "Please stop singing." A pause. Then, "Oh, sorry, was I loud?" "You were many things." Another pause. "Fair." Mira blinked. Nisha whispered, "I like him." "You like electrical fires." "They're exciting." From the wall. "I'll keep it down. Moving day adrenaline. Also, my dog is judging me, if that helps." Mira's grip on the broom loosened. "It doesn't," she called back. Understood. Silence returned. Mira set the broom down with dignity. Nisha was grinning so hard it looked painful. "Your wall man has a dog." "Many people have dogs. And jokes. Many people have jokes. And a voice like a wounded foghorn. That is not a selling point." Her phone buzzed. A 3rd dating app notification. Mira looked down. New match suggestion on loop. She did not move. Nisha leaned close again. "Open it." "No." "Open it." "No." Mira, with the slow dread of a woman approaching a suspicious stain, Mira opened the app. The profile loaded. Same curls. Same grin. Same Greyhound. This time the man was wearing a blue sweater and holding a cracked mug that read, "World's Okayest Human." Calder Vale, 33. Terrible singer. Excellent listener. Recently moved to Brooklyn with a rescue greyhound and unrealistic hopes for my new apartment. Mira stopped breathing. Nisha screamed. "Ha!" From the other side of the wall, the man said, "Everything okay over there?" Mira stared at the profile, then at the wall, then back at the profile. Recently moved to Brooklyn. Terrible singer. Greyhound. Her spreadsheet sat open on the coffee table, glowing with all the smug uselessness of a tool that had failed to predict the weather while standing in the rain. Nisha slapped both hands over her mouth. Her eyes were enormous. Mira lowered herself slowly onto the couch. On the app, Calder Vale's profile prompt blinked cheerfully. My most controversial opinion? Laundry room etiquette reveals the soul. Through the wall, the greyhound gave one elegant, mournful bark. Mira clicked into her spreadsheet and added a new note beneath Calder's name. Status: has breached physical perimeter. Then, after a long moment, she added, threat level, unclear. Chapter 2. Dryer 2. By 9 the next morning, Mira had created a decision tree. Not because she was overreacting. Overreaction was an emotional term used by people who mistook preparedness for drama. Mira preferred to think of herself as running a controlled simulation under emerging conditions. At the top of the document, she wrote, Question: Is Calder Vale, triple match anomaly, and wall singer a threat? Below it, she made 3 branches. Branch A, ignore. Branch B, establish neighbor boundaries. Branch C, move to Queens. Branch C was not ideal, but she liked to be comprehensive. The building's radiator clanged twice, as if voting. From the other side of the wall came a man's voice, bright with morning. Baroness Pickle, that is my sock. Mira froze with her coffee halfway to her mouth. Baroness Pickle. Of course the dog had a full legal title. We discussed this, Calder said. Textiles are not enemies. A pause. Fine, some textiles are enemies, but not this one. Mira set down her coffee and opened her spreadsheet. New data. Dog name absurd. Owner conducts full conversations with animal. Risk adjustment. +2 curiosity, +4 irritation. She was adding a conditional formatting rule when her phone buzzed. Have you met him face to face yet? Mira. No. Nisha. Coward. Mira. Professional. Nisha. A professional coward. Mira ignored her and gathered laundry. The laundry room at 4B Briar Street was technically a shared amenity, in the same way a single lifeboat for a cruise ship was technically a safety plan. It lived in the basement, behind a door that stuck in humid weather, and opened into a concrete room containing 2 washers, 2 dryers, 1 folding table, a vending machine that sold both detergent and profound disappointment, and a corkboard covered with passive-aggressive notes. Mira had a system. Saturday mornings were lawless. Sundays were for amateurs. Weekdays between 9:10 and 10:35 a.m. belonged to her. Because she worked from home and had once charted machine availability over 6 weeks, she descended the stairs with her hamper balanced against one hip, already feeling calmer. Laundry rewarded logic. Laundry had cycles, temperatures, timed endings. Laundry was civilization. She pushed open the basement door. Calder Vale stood in front of washer 1, holding a wet white shirt that had turned the approximate color of embarrassed salmon. Beside him sat the Greyhound from the profiles, taller than any dog had a moral right to be, wearing a sage green sweater and staring at Mira as if she had arrived late to court. Mira stopped. Calder looked up. Recognition arrived on his face in stages. Polite neighbor smile, mild confusion, dating app memory, dawning horror, then a grin he clearly tried and failed to suppress. Oh, he said. Hi. Mira considered leaving. Then she remembered she had sheets in her hamper, and sheets did not get clean through avoidance. Hello, she said. Calder glanced toward the ceiling. Wall neighbor. Triple match man. I was hoping you'd go with Calder. I was hoping you'd be quieter. His mouth twitched. Fair. The Greyhound released a sigh so theatrical it could have earned union wages. This is Baroness Pickle, Calder said. She is usually more welcoming, but she has strong feelings about basements. Understandable. And you are Mira. She stiffened. How do you know that? He lifted one hand. Your profile, not surveillance. That is exactly what a surveillant would say. I feel I should mention, I don't know if surveillant is a word, but I respect how confidently you used it. Mira moved toward washer 2. It is a word. Excellent. I learned something and got accused of a felony. Big morning. She began sorting lights from darks with surgical focus. Calder stood beside washer 1, still holding his ruined shirt. "So," he said, "you saw my profiles." "Evidently. All three?" "Your market saturation is aggressive. I prefer emotionally available across platforms." "That is not better." "It sounded better in my head." "Many things do." He smiled, and Mira hated that he appeared delighted instead of offended. Men with fragile egos were easier. They puffed, sulked, revealed themselves. Calder seemed to absorb irritation like sunlight. She poured detergent into washer 2. "For what it's worth," he said, "I did not know you were rejecting me in stereo." It was tri-channel. Right. Important distinction. Accuracy matters. "And yet," he said, lifting the pink shirt, "here I stand, defeated by a scarf." Mira looked at it despite herself. "You washed a red scarf with whites?" "In my defense, it was burgundy." "That is not a defense. That is a confession with branding." He considered the shirt. "Can it be saved?" "Do you own bleach?" "I own optimism." "Then no." Calder laughed. It was a warm sound, annoyingly unembarrassed, and it filled the basement in a way that made the room seem less like a bunker. Mira did not approve of this. The washer behind him beeped. "Oh," he said, "cycle's done." He opened washer 1. A flood of damp laundry smell rolled out, clean and slightly floral. He began transferring clothes into dryer 2. Mira's spine straightened. "Excuse me." Calder paused, arms full of wet towels. "Yes?" "Dryer 2 is mine." He looked at the machine, then at her empty washer. "Is your laundry currently in it?" "No, because my laundry is currently washing." "Then your relationship with dryer 2 feels aspirational." "Dryer 1 overheats and shrinks knits." "I don't have knits." "That's not the point." "What is the point?" "I use dryer 2. "Always?" "When available." "It is available. To me." Calder looked at Baroness Pickle. "Do you understand the property law here?" The dog blinked once. "She says it's complicated," he reported. Mira folded her arms. "Laundry room etiquette reveals the soul, apparently." He winced. "You read that prompt." "I read all 3. Thorough." "Someone had to be." He leaned against the dryer, still holding the towels. "Okay, I can use dryer 1. Mira was not prepared for this. "What?" "Dryer 1. I'll risk the knits I don't own." "You don't have to martyr yourself." "I'm not. I have 1 shirt left with dignity. It was already in danger." He moved his laundry to dryer 1 without complaint. This should have pleased her. Instead, it left her with the uncomfortable sensation of having arrived at a battle wearing armor and finding the other person offering tea. "Thank you," she said stiffly. "You're welcome, Mira." Her name in his mouth landed too gently. She turned back to her washer. Behind her, he fed quarters into dryer 1. The machine accepted 3, then spat the 4th back out with metallic contempt. "Of course," Calder said. He tried again. The quarter popped out and rolled across the floor. Baroness Pickle rose, placed 1 elegant paw on it, and looked at Mira. "Traitor," Calder told the dog. Mira tried not to smile. She failed by half an inch. Calder saw it. Worse, he looked pleased. "There it is," he said. "There what is?" "Evidence of amusement. Contaminated sample. Still admissible. Not in my court." "Your court seems strict." "My court has standards." His expression softened, and for one unguarded second he looked less like a man performing cheerfulness and more like someone relieved by the existence of standards because at least they gave him a map. Then he grinned again. "Well," he said, "as my first official act as your neighbor and laundry adversary, I apologize for the singing." "Good." "And for the furniture noises." "Also good." "And for existing across 3 apps." "Borderline excessive, but accepted." "I do have one question." "No." "You don't know what it is." "I have predictive capacity. Did I get any green flags?" Mira looked at him. Calder's smile stayed easy, but the question was not. There it was, barely visible under the joke. The wish to know whether he had been measured and found entirely ridiculous. Mira could have lied. She was often efficient at lying when the alternative was discomfort. Instead, she said, "Clean fingernails in the hiking photo." He laughed, but something in his shoulders loosened. "I'll take it." "You should. It's rare." The basement door opened, and Gus Moretti, the building super, stepped in carrying a toolbox and wearing the expression of a man who had regretted getting involved in other people's lives since 1983. He took in Mira, Calder, the dog, the laundry, the pink shirt, and the charged silence. "No fighting before 11, Gus said. "It's in the lease." "It is not," Mira said. "Should be." Calder lifted the ruined shirt. "Do you know how to fix this?" Gus squinted. "Time machine." Baroness Pickle sighed. Mira's washer began its spin cycle, loud and lopsided, shaking with the force of a small emotional breakdown. Calder leaned closer so she could hear him over the noise. "For the record," he said, "I would have matched with you." Mira's pulse did something inconvenient. "That's not a record I maintain." "You maintain many records." "Not that one." "Maybe you should." The washer rattled harder. Gus thumped it with his wrench. Baroness Pickle sneezed. Somewhere above them, a neighbor began practicing scales on a clarinet with unearned confidence. Mira stared at Calder Vale beside the bad dryer, his pink laundry, his noble, ridiculous dog, his too-open face. Her spreadsheet had not prepared for this. Chapter 3. The building hears everything. Mira had lived in 4B Briar Street long enough to understand that privacy was mostly decorative. The walls were not walls so much as ambitious paper. They allowed the passage of sound, mood, and occasionally smells that should have remained private between tenant and stove. Mira knew that Mrs. Alvarez in 2A watched game shows at a volume that suggested the contestants lived in another borough. She knew that Jonah in 5D called his mother every Sunday and lied about eating vegetables. She knew that Gus whistled the same 5 bars of an old Sinatra song whenever he unclogged a drain. She did not, until Calder moved in, know how frequently one man could drop objects. At 7:14 p.m., something clattered against the shared wall. "Sorry," Calder called. Mira did not respond. At 7:19, there was a scrape. "Also sorry." At 7:25, a crash so large it seemed to have a family. Mira stood from her desk, closed her eyes, and practiced the breathing exercise her therapist had recommended when Mira insisted she did not need therapy, but would accept tactical tools. In for 4, hold for 4. From next door, "Baroness, if you saw what happened, no, you didn't." Out for 4. Mira opened a new voice memo on her phone and paced. "Observation log," she said quietly. "Neighbor noise incidents continue at a statistically significant rate. Subject displays baffling optimism in response to property damage. Dog may be accomplice. Recommend maintaining distance until further evidence indicates subject can exist without disrupting basic residential function." Through the wall, Calder said, I can hear you. Mira stopped so quickly she nearly tripped over her own rug. Silence bloomed. Then he added, "Not all of it. Just enough to know I'm a subject." Mira stared at the wall as heat climbed her neck. That was private. The wall disagrees. The wall lacks boundaries. It has been a difficult adjustment for all of us. She marched to the wall. Were you listening? I was assembling a bookshelf. Loudly. With vulnerability. That is not a construction method. It is when the instructions are only pictures and judgment. Mira pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of her nose. Please, pretend you didn't hear anything. Already failed. But I can pretend I pretended. Generous. For what it's worth, I object to the phrase basic residential function. I have several. Name one. I take out trash before it becomes sentient. Minimum standard. I haven't set anything on fire. You've lived here for 26 hours. A strong record. Against her will, Mira smiled. Then, because the universe punished weakness, the hallway outside erupted. Are you two flirting or filing a lawsuit? Called Mrs. Alvarez from somewhere near the stairs. Mira closed her eyes. Calder from behind the wall said, I think both? No, Mira said. Unclear, said Gus from farther down the hall. Tones mixed. Mira opened her door. Gus stood by the mailboxes holding a plunger and a stack of flyers. Mrs. Alvarez had her door cracked open exactly wide enough to collect scandal. Jonah from 5D hovered on the landing, pretending to check his phone. There is no tone, Mira said. Mrs. Alvarez smiled. There is always tone. Calder opened his door at the same moment. He had a screwdriver tucked behind one ear, a smear of dust on his cheek, and the expression of someone who had wandered into the middle of a play and was delighted to have a role. Baroness Pickle stood beside him, wearing no sweater this time, which made her look somehow more naked than an ordinary dog. Good evening, Calder said to the hallway. No, Mira said. I wasn't asking anything. The answer remains no. Gus handed Calder a flyer. Tenant game night, Friday, basement, 7. Mira frowned. Since when do we have tenant game night? Since people started yelling through walls and making me curious. That is not a valid reason. That's one I've had all week. Calder read the flyer. Board games, snacks, community building exercises. Sounds nice. It sounds like a hostage situation with pretzels, Mira said. You coming? Absolutely not. Mrs. Alvarez made a disappointed noise. Shame. We need someone mean for trivia. Mira turned to her. Excuse me? Smart mean, Mrs. Alvarez clarified. Good kind. Calder looked at Mira with open delight. Smart mean. Do not repeat that. I would never. You already did. A memorial repetition. Mira looked at Gus. I am not attending. Gus shrugged. Then I'll put you down as maybe. That is not what maybe means. Building maybe. What is building maybe? No, but louder. Calder leaned against his doorframe. For what it's worth, I hope you come. The hallway went quiet in the particular way a hallway full of eavesdroppers goes quiet when everyone is pretending to respect privacy. Mira hated that she felt the sentence in her stomach. Why? She asked. Calder's grin softened. Because I need someone to keep me from trusting team-building exercises. She should have said something clean, something cutting, something that restored order. Instead, she said, you should never trust team-building exercises. See? Essential. Mrs. Alvarez made a sound Mira chose not to interpret. Mira retreated into her apartment and closed the door. Through the wall, Calder said, quieter now. Still sorry about the listening. Mira stood with her hand on the knob. "Still sorry about calling you a subject," she said. "Was I at least a compelling subject?" She looked at the wall. Data pending. His laugh came through the plaster, warm as lamplight. That night, Mira tried to work. She really did. She had a predictive model to review for a client whose entire business plan appeared to be delivering artisanal soup with venture capital money. But her attention kept drifting sideways, through the wall. Calder talked to Baroness Pickle while he unpacked. Not constantly, just in little bursts. "Kitchen box? That's optimistic." "No, we are not keeping the bubble wrap." "Fine, one piece of bubble wrap." Then, much later, when the apartment had gone mostly quiet. "I know," he said softly. "New places are weird." Mira's fingers stilled on the keyboard. "We'll be okay," he told the dog. "Probably. Statistically." It was a joke. It sounded like one. It also sounded lonely. Mira closed her laptop. For several minutes, she sat in the dim apartment, listening to a man she had reduced to risk factors reassure a dog that change was survivable. Then she opened her spreadsheet and found Calder's row. She did not change the risk score. But under notes, she added, "May be kind when no one is watching." Then, after a moment, she deleted it. Then, after another moment, she hit undo. Chapter 4. Off-App Chemistry. Mira agreed to the date with Leonard because Nisha called her a coward 3 times, and because spite, while not a sustainable lifestyle, could be temporarily motivating. Leonard was an urban planning consultant with a clean profile, a good smile, and no dog sweaters. His messages contained punctuation and moderation. His photos were neither reckless nor suspiciously curated. He asked questions, used complete sentences, and suggested a wine bar in Fort Greene that Mira had already rated acceptable for exits, lighting, and menu transparency. In other words, Leonard was data approved. Which was why, at 8:03 p.m. on Friday, as she sat across from him listening to a detailed explanation of zoning variants, Mira felt personally betrayed by her own methodology. "I suppose what fascinates me," Leonard said, swirling his wine, "is that density is both a policy tool and a moral framework." Mira said. Her phone buzzed face down on the table. She did not check it. She was being present. Present was a value she had added to her life after her therapist, Dr. Mehta, asked whether Mira ever experienced emotions without immediately building infrastructure around them. Mira had said, "Define experience." Dr. Mehta had sighed in a way Mira suspected was billable. Leonard leaned forward. "What's your take?" "On density?" "As a moral framework." Mira opened her mouth. Behind Leonard, across the narrow room, Calder Vale walked in with a woman in a green velvet jacket. Mira's mouth remained open. Calder saw her in the same instant. His eyebrows lifted, then his face performed a rapid and nearly heroic attempt at neutrality. The woman beside him said something. Calder nodded, still looking at Mira. Leonard turned. "Someone you know?" "Neighbor," Mira said. "Ah, Brooklyn." It was the sort of comment that meant nothing and wanted credit for meaning something. Calder and the woman were seated at a table so close, Mira could have buttered their bread. The woman in the green jacket laughed with her whole body. Calder smiled, but the smile kept slipping toward Mira as if dragged by gravity. Mira picked up her wine. Leonard resumed speaking. "As I was saying, everyone wants walkability until they encounter consequences." At Calder's table, Green Jacket said, "So, what's the most embarrassing thing about you?" Calder glanced at Mira, then looked back at his date. "My shower repertoire has recently received mixed reviews." Mira nearly inhaled wine. Leonard paused. Are you all right? Fine. Calder's date laughed. Oh, no. Are you one of those theater guys? Community arts, Calder said. Adjacent, but with more folding chairs. Mira stared at her wine. She did not care. He was on a date. She was on a date. This was normal. Adults dated. Sometimes adults dated in the same establishments after being algorithmically cross-contaminated and sharing a dryer dispute. Leonard said, Do you like historic preservation? As a concept, yes. As a practice? Depends what we're preserving. Exactly, Leonard said, delighted, as if she had opened a fascinating door. At Calder's table, Green Jacket was explaining something about partner yoga. The thing is, she said, intimacy is somatic. Calder nodded gravely. I have suspected this about bodies. Mira bit the inside of her cheek. Leonard looked over again. Your neighbor is funny. Is he? Objectively. Objectivity is often misused. Do you dislike him? Mira considered this. Across the room, Calder dropped his napkin. When he bent to retrieve it, Baroness Pickle's leash, looped around his chair because apparently the dog had joined the date, tangled around his ankle. He rose too quickly, knocked the table, caught the water glass, saved it, looked triumphant, and then sat directly on his own scarf. Green Jacket clapped. Mira laughed. It escaped before she could stop it, bright and surprised. Calder heard. His eyes met hers. For one suspended second, the bar, the dates, the zoning, the somatic intimacy, everything fell away. Leonard cleared his throat. Mira looked back at him. Sorry, she said. No, it's fine. Leonard's smile had cooled. You seem distracted. She could have denied it, but the denial would have insulted both of them. I am, she said. Leonard sighed, not unkindly. By the neighbor? In a hostile way. Of course. Mostly. At the other table, Green Jacket stood. I'm going to the restroom. Calder nodded. I'll be here, trapped by my own scarf. Mira stood too abruptly. Restroom, she told Leonard. Naturally. The hall to the restroom was narrow and dim. Calder reached it at the same time, either by coincidence or because the universe had abandoned subtlety. Hi, he said. Are you following me? I was going to ask you that. I arrived first. To the bar or the hallway? Both. Spiritually. He leaned one shoulder against the wall. Your date seems very informed. Yours seems flexible. She teaches restorative partner yoga. That sounds like a threat. It has felt like one. Mira glanced toward the dining room. Leonard believes density is a moral framework. Is it? I don't know anymore. Calder laughed quietly. Bad date? Approved date. Those can be the worst. And yours? Perfectly nice. That's damning. She's kind. Interesting. Has used the word sacral twice. How many times is too many? I discovered my limit is one. They stood too close. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and red wine. Mira became aware of the fact that Calder had dressed for the date. Not extravagantly, but carefully. Dark shirt, sleeves rolled, hair still unruly but pretending otherwise. He looked good. This was not helpful. You shouldn't be here, she said. In the hallway. In my evening. His expression changed, the joke lowering but not disappearing. You don't want me in your evening? The honest answer startled her so badly she had to look away. I don't want anomalies, she said. That's not the same thing. It is in my system. Maybe your system has bugs. She looked back at him. Careful. I am being careful. He was. That was the trouble. He was teasing her, but gently, as if he had noticed where the edge was and had no desire to push her over it. The restroom door opened and Green Jacket emerged. "Oh," she said brightly. "Neighbor summit?" Mira stepped back. Calder did too. "Zoning emergency," he said. Mira returned to her table and finished the date with grim civility. Leonard was gracious enough not to make her confess what was obvious, and when they parted outside the bar, he said, "I hope whatever that is works out, or stops bothering you." "That's very generous. I work in urban planning. I understand unresolved tension in shared spaces." It was the best thing he had said all night. When Mira reached her building, Calder was sitting on the stoop with Baroness Pickle, who wore a reflective collar and the long-suffering expression of a chaperone. "No second date?" he asked. "No partner yoga?" "No." They sat with one stare between them. For once, neither spoke immediately. The city moved around them, a bus sighing at the corner, someone laughing across the street, rainwater ticking from the fire escape. "I wasn't trying to ruin your date," Calder said. "You didn't. Good." He ruined it independently. Strong of him. Mira smiled despite herself. Baroness Pickle rested her narrow head on Mira's knee. Mira looked down. Is she allowed to do that? Baroness Pickle does not request permission. She issues appointments. Mira touched the dog's head with 2 careful fingers. Calder watched her, and there was something too soft in his face. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." "That's rarely true." "Fine. You look less terrifying with my dog." "Your dog has poor risk assessment." "Or excellent taste." Mira kept her hand on the dog's head. "Good night, Calder." "Good night, Mira." She went upstairs first. He followed a few minutes later. Through the wall, she heard him remove his shoes, talk softly to the dog, run the water. Then, barely audible, he began to hum. Not loud. Not quite on key. Mira lifted her broom, considered the wall, and set it down again. Chapter 5. The Leak. The ceiling dripped at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning. Mira was making coffee, reviewing overnight client emails, and congratulating herself on a day that had not yet contained Calder Vale, when a drop of water landed on her wrist. She looked up. A brownish bead trembled in the center of the kitchen light fixture. "No," she said. The fixture dripped again. "Absolutely not." A third drop landed in her coffee. Mira stepped back and called Gus. Gus answered on the 5th ring, sounding as though he had been awake for 300 years. "If it's heat, hit the radiator," he said. "My ceiling is leaking." "From where?" "Traditionally, ceilings leak from above." "Above you is 4C." Mira closed her eyes. Behind the wall, Calder shouted, "Oh no!" Gus sighed. "I'll bring towels." 5 minutes later, Calder stood in Mira's kitchen wearing sweatpants, a t-shirt that said, "Art saves, but so do snacks," and an expression of mortified apology. His hair was wet. Not styled wet, catastrophe wet. "The shower handle came off," he said. Mira stared at him. "In my hand," he added. "Where else would it come off?" "I wanted to clarify I wasn't doing anything weird." "You ripped off your shower handle at 6:42 in the morning." "With normal intentions." Water plinked into the mixing bowl Mira had placed under the light. Baroness Pickle stood in the doorway wearing a yellow raincoat. Mira looked at the dog. Why does she have rainwear? Emergency preparedness. For the dog? You seem like someone who would respect a go bag. Not for a Greyhound. That's between you and her. Gus arrived carrying a toolbox, a stack of towels, and a face that made clear he had already assigned blame to everyone equally. "Water's off," he said. "Nobody shower, nobody wash dishes, nobody discover a new way to make this worse." Calder raised his hand slightly. "Question." "No," Gus said. "Fair." For the next hour, Mira's kitchen became a triage center. Gus removed the light fixture with alarming calm. Calder mopped. Mira held a flashlight and tried not to think about the phrase electrical fire. Baroness Pickle supervised from the driest corner, her raincoat squeaking whenever she shifted. "Left," Gus said. Mira moved the flashlight. "Other left." "There is only one left." "Not from where I'm standing." Calder slipped on a towel and windmilled, catching himself on the counter just before crashing into Mira's labeled glass jars. "I'm fine," he said. "The quinoa is traumatized," Mira said. He glanced at the jars. "You label your grains. They deserve identity. This one says emergency feelings chocolate." Mira snatched the jar behind her back. Calder's eyes lit. "That's a category?" "No, it's labeled. It is a private category." "How often are the feelings emergencies?" "Less often when neighbors maintain plumbing integrity." "I deserve that." "You deserve many things." Gus grunted. "Flirt after I leave." "We are not flirting," Mira and Calder said together. Gus did not look up. "Sure." The repair took most of the morning. By 10, Mira had missed one client call, Calder had apologized 17 times, and the kitchen smelled like wet plaster and coffee grounds. Gus declared the situation temporarily stable, which was building language for no longer actively worsening. "Ceiling needs to dry," he said. "I'll patch tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Mira said. "Water obeys physics, not your calendar." He left. Mira stood in the kitchen ruins, exhausted and uncaffeinated. Calder wrung out a towel in the sink. "I am so sorry." "You said that. I have more. Please conserve them." He looked at her, and the cheerfulness fell away for once. "I know this is your space. I know I messed it up." The sentence landed more gently than she expected. Mira looked around her kitchen, the bowl catching drips, the towels, the exposed fixture, the dog in the raincoat. She wanted to be angry. Anger was clean. Anger had useful edges. But Calder looked genuinely miserable. "It was old plumbing," she said. "I still ripped the handle off. With normal intentions." He smiled a little. She opened the emergency feelings chocolate jar, took out 2 squares, and handed one to him. He accepted it like a communion wafer. "This feels significant," he said. "It's not." "Understood. Very insignificant chocolate." They ate in silence. Baroness Pickle approached, inspected the floor, and delicately stole a samosa from the plate Mira had forgotten on the counter. "Hey," Mira said. Calder looked at the dog, then at Mira. "I can explain." "Can you?" "No." Mira laughed. It surprised them both. Calder's face opened with such relief that Mira had to look away. "Don't make that expression," she said. "What expression?" "Like someone handed you a parade." "I like when you laugh." The kitchen seemed to still. The drip continued, steady into the bowl. Mira's pulse was suddenly louder than the water. "That is an inadvisable thing to say," she said. "I know." "Then why say it?" He leaned back against the counter, careful not to touch anything breakable. "Because I keep trying to say the advisable thing, and somehow I still end up flooding your kitchen." Mira looked at him. For the first time, she wondered what it cost him, all that brightness. whether it was ease or labor, whether he knew when he was charming people, or whether charm was simply the door he opened when afraid no one would come in otherwise. "Do you want coffee?" she asked. His eyebrows lifted. "My kitchen is already compromised," she said. "Might as well." "I love coffee." "No singing." "I can agree to reduced singing." "No singing." "Fine. Silent coffee." She made 2 cups in a kitchen with a hole in the ceiling, a damp towel underfoot, and a dog licking stolen samosa crumbs from the floor. It should have felt like failure. Instead, for reasons Mira chose not to investigate yet, it felt like a beginning. Chapter 6. Terms and Conditions. Calder returned Mira's misdelivered package on Wednesday evening with the solemnity of a courier carrying state secrets. "This arrived in 4C, he said. "I did not open it, shake it, evaluate its density, or ask Baroness Pickle for a second opinion." Mira took the box. "That is the bare minimum of neighbor ethics. I'm trying to build a brand." "A legally compliant one?" Aspirationally. The package contained planner inserts Mira had ordered during a midnight bout of optimism. She set it on the table and found Calder lingering in her doorway, one hand braced against the frame, looking unusually unsure of himself. "Do you need something?" she asked. "Possibly." That is not a useful answer. "I was wondering if you wanted to have dinner." Mira's pulse committed a procedural violation. "We had dinner during the plumbing emergency." "We had damp coffee and trauma chocolate. I mean, dinner, with chairs, cutlery, and no threat of electrical death." "That's ambitious." "I contain multitudes. Most of them loud." His smile came, but softly. "Some of them can make pasta." Mira should have said no. Not because she wanted to, because wanting to was precisely the sort of uncontrolled variable that got people into trouble. But Calder stood there in the hallway, with one curl falling over his forehead and his hope carefully disguised as a joke. And Mira discovered that no had become unexpectedly heavy. "One dinner," she said. "Excellent. I will make something impressive and structurally questionable. No mushrooms." "Allergies?" "Distrust." "Noted." Dinner in Calder's apartment involved rigatoni, roasted peppers, a salad that had been washed with excessive earnestness, and Baroness Pickle stationed beneath the table like a duchess awaiting tribute. Calder had lit one candle, then panicked and blown it out because it seemed aggressively date-adjacent. "This is not a date," Mira said, because the word had entered the room and needed containment. "Right," Calder said. "This is a neighborly carbohydrate exchange." "Exactly. With wine. A moderate escalation. And music. Low volume. Respectfully romantic at best." Mira pointed her fork at him. "Do not make me regret being here." "I would never!" "Baroness Pickle, stop making eyes at the guest." The dog, who was absolutely making eyes, blinked with ancient innocence. The night should have been awkward. Instead, it kept refusing. Calder told her about the after-school theater program where he worked, about a 4th grader who had rewritten Hamlet so everyone survived and opened a bakery, about Janelle's ability to intimidate copy machines into working. Mira told him about a client who wanted predictive analytics but became offended when the predictions were unpleasant. He laughed in the right places and listened in the quiet ones. Halfway through dinner, Mira's phone lit on the table. Ravi Malhotra. The name appeared like a handprint on glass. Calder glanced at it before looking away. "You can get that." "I don't want to." "Okay." The phone went dark. He did not ask. That made her want to answer the question anyway. "He's my ex," Mira said. Calder set down his glass. Ah. He's also a data ethics consultant, which is not a crime, but often sounds like one. Recent ex? No, serious ex. Different category. Unfortunately. She waited for Calder to make a joke. He did not. He used to say being loved by me felt like being audited, she said. Calder's face changed. That's a brutal thing to say. He wasn't entirely wrong. Mira. No, he wasn't. I notice things. I test things. I keep records. People can be accurate and cruel at the same time. The sentence landed in a place she did not usually let other people speak to. You sound certain. I have some field experience. His smile returned, too quick and too polished. There it was, Mira thought. The bright door closing over the darker room. Leora? She asked. He blinked. Your ex, she said. You mentioned her once to Baroness Pickle through the wall. Thin walls, remember? Ah, betrayed by drywall. Constantly. Calder turned his wineglass by the stem. She said I was exhausting. Mira's anger rose so fast it surprised her. That's efficient cruelty, too. Maybe. I was a lot. You are a lot. He looked up. That is not the same as too much, she said. The room went quiet. Outside, someone on the street laughed. The radiator clicked. Baroness Pickle rested her chin on Mira's shoe, as if claiming jurisdiction. Calder's voice, when it came, was softer. Careful, Mira. That almost sounded like a green flag. Don't get used to it. Too late. I'm updating my internal dashboard. Amateur. He smiled. A real one this time. Later, when she stood to leave, he walked her the 6 feet to his door as if escorting her across a dangerous kingdom. Thank you for dinner, she said. Thank you for tolerating my structurally questionable pasta. It held up better than expected. High praise. In the hallway, they paused between their doors, close enough to hear each other breathe, close enough for Mira to understand that if she moved half a step, he would kiss her, close enough for her to want him to. Good night, Calder. Good night, Mira. She went into her apartment, closed the door, and leaned against it. Through the wall, Calder said, "For the record, mushrooms feel misunderstood." Mira laughed before she could stop herself. Then she opened her planner inserts, ignored the page labeled Romantic Goals, and wrote Ravi's name on the back of a receipt instead. Not because he was coming back into her life, because, apparently, he had never quite left the system. Chapter 7. Smart, Mean. Mira did not attend tenant game night because she wanted to see Calder. She attended because Nisha arrived at her apartment carrying boxed wine and a tote bag full of aggressive concern. You have 2 choices, Nisha said, pushing inside. You can come downstairs voluntarily, or I can make a scene in front of your neighbors and become beloved. You don't live here. That makes my power portable. I have work. Nisha looked at Mira's closed laptop. You're staring at an unanswered email from your ex like it might start billing you. It's strategic avoidance. Your strategies need pants. Put some on. 10 minutes later, Mira was in the basement, holding a paper plate of pretzels and wondering whether anyone had ever successfully sued a cousin for emotional trespass. The common room had been transformed, with the kind of optimism available only to people who did not have to store the folding chairs afterward. Gus had dragged out 3 card tables. Mrs. Alvarez had brought empanadas. Jonah from 5D had contributed a speaker playing jazz at a volume he called atmospheric, and Mira called evasive. Calder stood near the snack table with Janelle Ortiz, whom Mira recognized from the fundraiser photos in his apartment. Janelle was tall, stylish, and had the relaxed authority of a woman who could silence a cafeteria with one eyebrow. Calder saw Mira. His expression flickered. Surprise. Pleasure. A quick, private brightness that made the basement feel less like concrete and more like possibility. Then he looked away first, which was either mercy or strategy. Mira hated how much she wanted it to be both. Gus clacked his hands. "All right, teams!" "This is how civilization ends," Mira muttered. Nisha linked arms with her. "This is how you socialize." Same concern. Gus began assigning people with the grim neutrality of a judge. Mrs. Alvarez and Jonah, Nisha and me, Janelle and Mr. Park, Mira and Calder. "No," Mira said. "Absolutely not," Calder said at the same time. The room went silent. Mrs. Alvarez smiled into her empanada. Gus shrugged. "Only fair. Smart mean with noisy hopeful." "I'm not noisy," Calder said. From 3 directions, neighbors coughed. "Hopeful is also unproven," Mira said. Janelle looked between them. "Oh, this is rich." Nisha whispered, "I love public art." The first game was trivia. Mira prepared to carry the team alone and discovered, annoyingly, that Calder was good at it. Not the same categories as her. He knew theater disasters, children's books, city landmarks, and the lyrics to commercial jingles from the early 2000s. Mira knew history, science, tax law, and the statistical probability of Gus making up rules. Question, Gus read. What year did the Brooklyn Bridge open? 1883, Mira said. Calder wrote it down. Confident? Yes. Excellent. I love certainty in a woman. Don't. Admire historical knowledge? Flirt during infrastructure questions. So flirt after? She glared at him. He smiled, smaller than usual, testing the ground. She looked away first. They dominated trivia. This would have been satisfying if it had not required teamwork. Calder learned that Mira tapped the table twice when she knew an answer. Mira learned that Calder hummed under his breath when trying to remember something and stopped when she looked at him. By round 3, they were answering before Gus finished reading. Name the longest-running Broadway musical. Phantom, Calder said. The original closed, Mira said. But still longest running. Technically. Take the win, spreadsheet. Do not call me spreadsheet. Would you prefer pivot table? Would you prefer dryer 1? He put a hand to his chest. Cruel. She smiled before she could stop herself. He saw. The smile between them was small, fragile. An apology trying on casual clothes. The next game was charades, which Mira considered a violation of human dignity. Gus handed her a slip of paper. She unfolded it. Earthquake preparedness. This is impossible, she said. No talking, Gus said. This is a phrase, not a concept. No litigating either. Mira stood in front of her team and began miming. She pointed to the ground, shook her hands, duck and covered under an imaginary table, pointed to an imaginary emergency kit. Calder watched, eyes narrowed in concentration. Panic basement, he guessed. Mira shook her head. Floor betrayal. Harder headshake. Statistically significant attraction. The room erupted. Mira froze. Calder looked as surprised as everyone else. Then delighted. Then embarrassed. Sorry, he said. That one was personal. Mira should have been furious. Instead, she laughed so hard she had to sit down. The sound broke something open in the room. Even Calder laughed, not his usual bright cover, but a real laugh that bent him forward. Janelle watched him with sharp, soft eyes. Later, while Nisha argued with Gus about whether charades rules had been applied consistently, Mira found herself beside Calder at the snack table. "I'm sorry," she said. He looked at her. "Forgetting sharp when you asked about Ravi," she said. "I was embarrassed that old damage still had current access." Calder picked up a pretzel, then set it down. "Thank you." "I don't think you're only emotional jazz hands." "Only?" "Don't push it." He smiled faintly. "And I don't think you're cold," he said. The words struck somewhere tender. Mira looked at her plate. "I didn't say you did." "I know." Around them, the neighbors shouted over a round of Pictionary. Mrs. Alvarez was drawing what appeared to be a haunted toaster. Baroness Pickle had somehow acquired a party hat and was enduring it with aristocratic despair. Calder leaned closer. "For the record, your earthquake preparedness was very clear." "It was not." "No, but it was committed." "I hate this building." "No, you don't." "I hate how often people in it are correct." "That I believe." Their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. Chapter 8. Behind the Folding Chairs. Calder's community arts fundraiser took place in a public school cafeteria that smelled like floor wax, pizza, and childhood fear. Mira had agreed to come because he asked without making it sound like a date. "It's not a date," he said through the wall on Wednesday night. "Then why are you asking me?" "Because our check-in system is chaos wearing a lanyard." "Flattery." "And because the kids are doing scenes from A Midsummer Night's Dream and one of them has decided Puck is from New Jersey." "That is interpretation." "It is a threat." Mira said no. Then she said maybe. Then she showed up Saturday afternoon wearing black trousers, a blue sweater, and the expression of a woman prepared to alphabetize a war. The check-in table was worse than Calder had implied. 3 clipboards, no pens that worked, donor envelopes mixed with raffle tickets, a volunteer named Spencer who kept saying, "I think the vibe is intuitive." Mira removed her coat. "Spencer," she said, "the vibe is not intuitive." Within 20 minutes, she had created 3 lines labeled donation levels, recruited 2 8th graders to manage raffle entries, and frightened a local councilman's assistant into writing legibly. Calder watched from beside the stage, holding a roll of masking tape. Janelle appeared next to him. "Close your mouth." "I'm not doing anything." "You're looking at her like she invented chairs." "She might have improved them." On stage, a 12-year-old in glitter sneakers shouted, "Lord, what fools these mortals be!" With a New Jersey accent so thick, Mira heard someone in the audience whisper, "Is that allowed?" The night grew louder, messier, more alive. Parents hugged children. Children forgot lines and recovered with alarming confidence. Calder moved through the room like a thread tying everyone together, fixing a crown, calming a nervous boy, laughing with a grandmother, carrying folding chairs 3 at a time because apparently grocery bag overconfidence was a life philosophy. Mira kept finding reasons to watch him. At intermission, one of the students approached her. "Are you Calder's mean girlfriend?" Mira choked on seltzer. "I am not his girlfriend." "But you're mean?" "I prefer direct." The girl nodded. "He likes direct. He gets confused by hints." "Does he?" "One time, Miss Janelle said he needed to stop volunteering for everything, and he volunteered to make a chart of his volunteering." Mira looked across the room. Calder was taping a paper moon back to a cardboard sky, his brow furrowed in concentration. "That sounds like him," she said. The girl studied her. "You like him. You should return to your adult supervision." "That's a yes." After the performances, Calder was pulled on stage by the kids for a thank you song. He tried to refuse. The kids booed him. Janelle pointed at the stage with the authority of a military commander. Calder sang. Badly. Very badly. But he sang with joy so unprotected that the room loved him for it. The children shrieked with laughter, parents clapped along, and Calder missed notes like he was releasing them into the wild. Mira laughed until her face hurt. He caught her looking. This time, she did not look away. Afterward, they stacked chairs behind the cafeteria stage while Janelle counted cash boxes and issued orders. "Your program is impressive," Mira said. Calder slid a chair onto the rack. "You sound surprised." "I am revising prior assumptions." "That's practically a love sonnet from you." "Don't get greedy." He smiled, then grew quiet. "I was a weird kid." Mira looked at him. "Too loud, too much. Always trying to make teachers laugh before they could decide they didn't like me." He adjusted a chair that did not need adjusting. "There was one drama teacher who let me be all of it. Loud, scared, ridiculous. She made room." Mira's chest tightened. "So now you make room," she said. He shrugged, uncomfortable with being seen too directly. "I try." She thought of her own childhood, her parents' apartment full of warmth and arguments, laughter and silence, all the signals she had missed because she was a child and children were not analysts. She thought of the day the story changed without warning. "I was a careful kid," she said. "I thought if I paid enough attention, I could tell when something was about to break." Calder's gaze softened. "Could you?" "No." The word sat between them. "That must have been lonely," he said. It was too accurate. "So was being too much," she said. He smiled a little. "Fair." Someone backstage dropped a box of props. Janelle shouted, "If anyone broke the donkey head, confess now and save us all time." Mira laughed. Calder stepped closer. Not too close. Close enough to ask without asking. "Mira," he said. "Yes?" "I would like to kiss you behind these folding chairs." Her heart lurched. "That's an absurdly specific request." "I'm learning you prefer specificity." "I do." "Good." "Also, the phrasing needs work. I can revise after." "After?" "If approved." Mira looked at his mouth. "Approved," she said. The kiss was soft at first, almost careful. Calder kissed like someone trying very hard not to frighten the moment away. Mira, who had expected to analyze, forgot to. His hand came to her waist, warm through her sweater. Her fingers curled into his sleeve. The world narrowed to cafeteria dust, distant laughter, and the astonishing fact of wanting without immediately measuring. Then a child shouted, "Miss Janelle, the raffle bucket is stuck on Liam's head!" They broke apart. Calder rested his forehead lightly against hers. "This program has no respect for romance," he said. Mira laughed breathlessly. "It has excellent timing," she said. Chapter 9. Soft Launch. Dating Calder quietly was impossible. This was not because Mira lacked discretion. Mira was extremely discreet. She could carry a secret like a sealed evidence bag. The building, however, had other priorities. On Monday morning, Mira left Calder's apartment at 6:17 a.m., wearing yesterday's sweater and the expression of a person who had made several choices without committee approval. Gus was in the hallway, holding 2 coffees. He handed her one. "Plausible deniability," he said. Mira took it. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure." Calder opened his door behind her, hair disastrous, face sleepy and happy. Gus handed him the second coffee. "You too." Calder accepted it. Thank you. Walls are thin. Coffee helps shame. Mira walked away. Behind her, Calder said, I feel supported and judged. That's community, Gus said. For 2 weeks, they tried to be sensible. Sensible meant no dramatic declarations. Sensible meant not merging calendars. Sensible meant Mira did not open the dating spreadsheet, even when her fingers itched for the clean comfort of columns. She did make one handwritten list called Things I Know Without Proof, then hid it inside a tax folder because, apparently, vulnerability could be filed under deductible losses. They had breakfasts in her apartment because her coffee was better. They had dinners in his because Baroness Pickle looked personally betrayed if Mira passed the door without coming in. They negotiated shower singing. Calder was allowed one chorus before 9 p.m., provided he stayed within an agreed volume range. Mira was allowed to knock once if the song involved emotional key changes. Their banter softened without disappearing. You alphabetized my spices, Calder said one evening. You had cumin next to cinnamon. They were friends. They were workplace acquaintances at best. My kitchen feels stricter now. Your kitchen has been rescued from lawlessness. My oregano misses danger. He kissed her against the counter, and Mira forgot oregano entirely. Nisha demanded updates with the delicacy of a news helicopter. Define dating, Nisha said over video chat. No. Are you exclusive? We have not established terms. Have you established tongues? Goodbye. That is a yes. Janelle was worse because she was quieter. At Calder's program office, where Mira had stopped by with the pretext of returning a portable label maker no one had asked for, Janelle looked from Calder to Mira and said, Healthy glow, both of you. Suspicious. It's allergies, Calder said. To pants? Janelle asked. Mira decided she liked Janelle very much and feared her even more. The happiness was real. That was the problem. Mira had expected attraction to be disruptive. She had not expected comfort. She had not expected Calder to learn that she hated cilantro and loved old legal thrillers. She had not expected him to text pictures of Baroness Pickle judging different household objects. She had not expected to want to tell him small things before she had organized them into meaning. One night, after dinner, he found her on his couch with a folder in her lap. Work? He asked. Taxes. That was too fast. Tax adjacent. He sat beside her, close enough that his knee touched hers. That is a dangerous phrase. Mira closed the folder before he could see the list inside. Calder noticed. Of course he noticed. But instead of reaching, teasing, or asking for the things she was not ready to hand over, he rested his head against the back of the couch. You don't have to show me, he said. The gentleness made her defensive and grateful at once. It's not interesting. That's fine. I like several uninteresting things. The weather, toast, my own opinions. She laughed. He turned his head toward her. I mean it. Mira's fingers tightened around the folder. I'm trying not to make you into a project, she said. His expression shifted. Am I at risk of becoming one? Everyone is at risk of becoming one. Comforting. I'm aware it isn't. He watched her for a long second. Thank you for telling me. It should not have felt like a reprieve, but it did. She set the folder on the floor, out of reach. Do you want to watch something terrible? She asked. Always. Old legal thriller? Will there be one woman in a blazer who knows too much? Several. I'm in. They spent the rest of the night under one blanket, Baroness Pickle stretched across their feet, while Mira tried to teach Calder the difference between a legitimate courtroom objection and A screenwriter needing a man to stand up dramatically. It was ordinary. It was dangerous. It was the kind of happiness that made Mira want to check the exits and stay anyway. Chapter 10. The Risk Assessment. Ravi's email reappeared at the top of Mira's inbox because she had left it unread for 6 days. An email, like certain ex-boyfriends, had a gift for looking patient while being intrusive. Panel invitation, plus would love to catch up. Mira stared at it for 6 full minutes. Ravi had always been efficient. Even his emotional ambushes arrived with agenda items. The panel was for a data ethics conference in Manhattan. Mira had been invited to speak about predictive modeling in consumer behavior. Ravi, apparently, would moderate. Nisha's advice was immediate. No, you haven't read the email. I heard Ravi. That's enough. It's a good professional opportunity. So is not touching a hot pan. Mira accepted the invitation anyway. She told herself it was career strategy. She told herself she was mature. She told herself she could occupy the same room as a man who once said she made love feel like a performance review and not allow the sentence to reach across years and close around her throat. She told Calder over Thai food. He listened carefully, which was one of the dangerous things about him. "Do you want me to come?" he asked. "It's not that kind of event." "What kind is it?" "Networking, panels, people using the phrase actionable insights until meaning collapses." Sounds romantic. Do not make that face. What face? Supportive, but worried. That's just my face when someone mentions an ex who hurt them. Mira set down her fork. I didn't say he hurt me. Calder waited. He was not cruel, she said. That's a low bar. He admired me. Until he didn't. Calder's hand rested on the table, close, but not touching hers. Mira, he said, being with me felt like being audited. Calder's jaw tightened. Don't, she said. Don't what? Look angry on my behalf. I am angry on your behalf. It was years ago. And? She did not have a good answer. At the same time, Calder's own past reached for him through an Instagram notification. His ex, Leora, commented on a photo Janelle had posted of the fundraiser. So good to see you calmer these days. Looks like you're finally less exhausting. Calder deleted the notification before Mira saw it, but Mira saw his face. What happened? She asked. Nothing. That's a lie with no effort. He smiled. I save effort for better lies. Calder. He handed her the phone. She read the comment. The anger she had forbidden him bloomed in her instantly. What an incredibly efficient little cruelty. She's not wrong. Mira looked up. Excuse me? I was a lot. You are a lot. That is not a defect. Depends who you ask. I'm asking me. He smiled, but it wavered. The conference reception was the following Thursday in a glass-walled event space full of people in expensive shoes, saying the future of data as if it were a guest expected any minute. Calder came after all. Not because Mira asked. Because he said, I can stand in a room and hand you sparkling water when people say unbearable things. For the first half hour, he was perfect. Too perfect. Charming with strangers, funny with academics, useful at the coat check, relaxed in a way Mira knew was partly costume. She watched him perform ease and felt the old instinct rise in herself, become sharper, cooler, less needful, more impressive. Ravi found them near the hors d'oeuvres. He looked older in a handsome, polished way. His smile was familiar enough to unsettle her. Mira, he said, you look wonderful. Ravi, His eyes moved to Calder. And this is... Calder Vale, Calder said, offering a hand. Neighbor, date, emergency sparkling water support. Ravi smiled. Multifunctional. Mira felt Calder's hand brush her back, light enough to be removed if unwanted. Calder runs community arts programs, she said. How lovely, Ravi said, in a tone that made lovely sound like small. Calder's smile brightened. Mira's stomach sank. Bright was not always happy. Sometimes, Bright was armor. The panel went well. Mira was poised, precise, devastating in response to a venture capitalist who tried to rebrand surveillance as personalization. The audience applauded. Ravi praised her intelligence into the microphone in a way that sounded generous to everyone except Mira, who heard the old ownership in it. Afterward, he caught her by the bar. You're still formidable, Ravi said. I was never not. No, you weren't. His gaze moved toward Calder, who was laughing too loudly with two strangers near the window. He seems fun. He is. Good for you. You needed someone lighter. Mira's spine went cold. Lighter? Ravi lifted one shoulder. You know what I mean. I don't. Come on, Mira. You and I were serious, intense. Maybe this is healthier for you. A man who doesn't require so much analysis. Across the room, Calder's laugh cut off. He had heard enough. The subway ride home was quiet, until it wasn't. I don't require analysis, Calder said finally. Mira gripped the pole. Ravi was being condescending. Were you? What? Is that what this is? I'm lighter? No. Fun Calder. Easy Calder. Good for folding chairs and bad songs and making your neighbors laugh. That's not what I think. Then what do you think? The train lurched. Mira stumbled and Calder caught her automatically. They both froze. She pulled back. I think you're making this about something it isn't. And I think you're terrified he might be right. That is unfair. Maybe. Stop saying maybe when you mean yes. He looked at her, hurt and furious. Stop using unfair when you mean accurate. The subway car went silent around them in the way New Yorkers go silent to listen better. Mira lowered her voice. You are not the only person in this relationship with wounds. I know that. Do you? Because every time I hesitate, you act like I'm rejecting your entire self. Because people have. The confession landed hard. Calder looked away, breathing fast. Mira wanted to reach for him. She wanted to say the right thing. Instead, all her fear dressed itself as control. I cannot be responsible for everyone who made you feel too much. His face closed. No, he said, you can't. They rode the rest of the way in silence. At the building, Calder did not come in. I should take Baroness out, he said in the hallway, though it was raining, and Baroness Pickle considered weather a personal insult. Okay, Mira said. He flinched at the word, or maybe she imagined it. He went into his apartment. Mira went into hers. For 20 minutes, she did nothing. Then she did the thing she had promised herself she would not do. She opened the spreadsheet. Not the old dating pipeline. That file was buried deep inside a folder named Archive Do Not Open, which was exactly the kind of folder name that invited future crimes. This was a new document, created in a rush of panic after the Ravi email arrived, titled Relational Risk Review, private.xlsx. Private. As if privacy changed the shape of what she was doing. She told herself she was calming down. She told herself she was organizing. She told herself no one would see it. She entered rows with shaking hands. Trigger. Ravi frames Calder as unserious. Observed. Calder response. Performs charm, withdraws when hurt. Observed. Mira response. Overcorrects toward coolness, treats fear as evidence. Risk. Calder may leave if he feels evaluated. Counter risk. Mira may lose self if she stops evaluating. Unresolved. Is love trust or merely insufficient data? The last line was unforgivable the second she typed it. She heard Calder's key in the hall and stood too fast, knocking over her water glass. It spilled across the table, running beneath the laptop. No, no, no! She grabbed napkins, lifted the computer, and opened the door without thinking because the nearest dry towel was in the laundry basket she had left in the hall. Calder was there with Baroness Pickle, both damp. He saw her face. What happened? Water. He stepped in automatically. Move the charger. I have it. Mira, unplug it. They worked in quick, tense silence. He passed her towels. She blotted the keyboard. Baroness Pickle stood in the doorway, dripping with tragic grandeur. Then the laptop screen woke. The spreadsheet was still open. Calder saw his name. Mira saw him see it. Everything stopped. His eyes moved once, unwillingly, across the visible lines. Risk. Calder may leave if he feels evaluated. Counter risk. Mira may lose self if she stops evaluating. Is love trust or merely insufficient data? He stepped back. Calder, she said. His face was very still. Please tell me that's old. Mira's silence answered. He nodded once, as if confirming a fact he had been trying very hard not to know. I didn't mean for you to see it. No, he said. I understand that. I was upset. So you made me a case study. I made us one. That is not better. She reached for the laptop. He did not stop her. It's not a scorecard. Then what is it? She wanted to tell him the truth. That it was a panic room. That when love began to feel uncontrollable, she built exits out of columns. That Ravi's voice had found the old wound, and Calder's hurt had made it bleed, and she had chosen the one tool that had never asked anything of her. It's how I process, she said. Calder closed his eyes. I know. Then why are you looking at me like that? Because knowing doesn't make it not hurt. The sentence was quiet. No performance, no bright edge, just the real wound, unadorned. Mira's throat tightened. I trust you. Do you? Yes. Then why does love with me still look like evidence against an outcome? She had no answer that would not indict her. I'm trying, she whispered. I know. Don't say it like goodbye. His mouth trembled once before he steadied it. I don't want to be someone's ongoing risk assessment. You're not. Mira. Her name in his mouth was unbearably gentle. You are, he said, so careful with everything except the places where I am soft. The words broke something open. That's not fair. Maybe not. I don't know how to do this without being afraid. I never asked you not to be afraid. Then what are you asking? To be chosen while you're afraid. Not monitored until fear approves me. The radiator clicked. The dog shivered once, water ticking onto the floor. Mira wrapped both arms around herself. I don't know how. Calder nodded. I believe you. That was worse than anger. He moved toward the door. Calder, wait! He stopped, but did not turn around. I love you, she said. It was the first time either of them had said it, and she had chosen the worst possible room, the worst possible moment, the worst possible evidence. His shoulders curved inward. I love you too, he said. Then he looked back at her, eyes wet. And I can't keep auditioning for a verdict. He left. Through the wall, a minute later, she heard his apartment door close. No singing, no dog conversation, no cheerful commentary on the weather. For the first time since he moved in, the wall between them felt thick. Chapter 11. Quiet Break. The breakup, if a thing could break twice, happened the next morning. Mira arrived at Calder's door carrying a container of lentil soup because practical care was the only kind she trusted herself to offer. He opened the door and looked so tired she almost turned the soup into an apology and left. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Baroness Pickle appeared behind him, tail low. Mira held out the container. "I made too much." "You measure everything." "I miscalculated." He accepted it. Neither moved. "Can we talk?" he asked. Every cell in Mira's body voted no. "Yes," she said. They sat at his small kitchen table. The apartment, once chaotic with boxes, had settled into itself. A crooked bookshelf, a bright rug, plants with aspirational labels, a framed drawing from one of Calder's students that showed him as a wizard holding a sandwich. Mira loved the room. This seemed like poor timing. Calder set the soup between them. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Eat soup?" He smiled faintly. "Us." Mira folded her hands. "Okay, I care about you. A lot." That sentence rarely ends well. "No." Rain tapped the window. "I keep feeling like I'm auditioning," he said. "Not because you ask me to. Because I don't know how to stop. I make jokes, I smooth things over, I try to be easy, and then I resent you for not seeing the parts I keep hiding." Mira's throat tightened. "I do see them," she said. "Sometimes. And when you do, you document them." She flinched. "I'm trying," she said. "I know." "Do you?" "Yes. That's what makes this hard." He looked at her with unbearable gentleness. "I can't be someone's ongoing risk assessment, Mira." The words had come before, but now they sounded final. "And I can't leap because someone tells me the water is fine," she said. "I need evidence." "I'm not asking you to leap. It feels like everyone is always asking me to leap." "What are you asking me to do?" She had no answer. That was the worst part. Mira had built systems for everything except the moment someone she cared about sat across from her and asked for a future she could not guarantee. "I don't know," she whispered. Calder nodded. His eyes were bright. "I think maybe we need to stop." The word stop moved through her like cold water. "Maybe," she said, because pride was a stupid animal and still alive. He looked down. "I hate that," he said. "I do too." Baroness Pickle came to Mira and placed her head in Mira's lap. Mira stroked the velvet-soft ridge between her ears, because if she stopped touching something, she might shatter. "She's going to think this is her fault," Calder said. Mira gave a wet laugh. "She has an inflated sense of influence. Runs in the household." Their smiles hurt. Mira stood. Calder did too. At the door, he said, "I don't regret it." "No? No? You?" Mira wanted to tell him that regret was too small a word for the ache already opening in her chest. That the spreadsheet had failed because she had been measuring danger when she should have been learning courage. That she was sorry in ways she did not yet know how to use. "No," she said. He nodded. She went into the hallway. Mrs. Alvarez's door was closed. Gus was not pretending to fix anything. Even the building seemed to hold its breath. Mira entered her apartment and shut the door. On the other side of the wall, Calder moved quietly. A cabinet opened. A spoon clinked against ceramic. The dog whined once, softly. Mira slid down her door to the floor. For a long time, she listened to the sounds of someone she loved continuing to exist one wall away. Chapter 12. Damage Control. Mira spent Monday building a new spreadsheet. This one was called Post-Calder Stabilization Plan.xlsx. It had tabs for food, sleep, work, exercise, emotional exposure, and laundry route optimization to avoid basement overlap events. By noon, she had eaten 2 crackers, answered 14 emails, and color-coded despair. At 12:07, Nisha arrived with grocery bags. "No," Mira said through the door. "I have keys." That was for emergencies. "You made a breakup spreadsheet. This is a federal emergency." Nisha let herself in, surveyed the apartment, and said nothing for once. Mira hated that more than commentary. Nisha unpacked rice, yogurt, mangoes, and something wrapped in foil. "My mother made pakoras," she said. "She said heartbreak needs fried things." "I didn't tell your mother." "I told my mother." "Why?" "Because unlike you, I believe in community resources." Mira sat at the table. Nisha placed food in front of her. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "I did not ask for a status report." Mira ate. The pakora tasted like home and humiliation. Nisha sat across from her. "Do you want him back?" Mira stared at the table. "That is not the first question." "It is the only question. There are variables." "No, there are reasons you're scared, and there are reasons he is scared. Those are real. But you keep treating wanting him like a contaminated sample." Mira's eyes burned. "I don't know how to trust that something won't disappear." Nisha's face softened. "Of course you don't." That was nearly unbearable. "Everyone acts like the spreadsheet is the problem," Mira said. "But the spreadsheet is what I built because the problem already existed." "I know." "Do you?" "Yes, but Mira, you built a smoke alarm and started using it as a house." Mira laughed once, brokenly. "That's terrible." "I'm workshopping." "It's also annoyingly accurate." Nisha reached across the table. "You don't have to become careless to love him. He thinks I don't trust him." "Do you?" Mira thought about Calder handing her coffee in a leaking kitchen. Calder singing terribly because children wanted him to. Calder asking to kiss her with ridiculous specificity. Calder hurt in her apartment, trying to joke because not joking would reveal too much. "I trust him," she said. "Then why doesn't he know that?" The question stayed after Nisha left. Next door, Calder's apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Mira opened the spreadsheet. She looked at the tabs, the columns, the rules. All of it was precise. None of it was useful. She selected Calder's row. Her finger hovered over delete. She couldn't do it. Not because she wanted to keep measuring him, because deleting him felt like pretending he had not mattered. So instead, she opened a blank document. At the top, she wrote, "Things I know without proof." Then she sat for 20 minutes. Finally, she typed, 1. Calder makes room for people because someone once made room for him. Then, 2. I feel more like myself when he teases me and still stays. Then, 3. I am scared. Then, 4. Scared is not the same as right. She cried after that, which was inconvenient and not scheduled. Through the wall, she heard Calder cough once. She put one hand against the plaster. For the first time, she did not knock. Chapter 13. Calder without applause. Calder made it 11 minutes into his new personality. The new personality was called Calm Adult Man Who Does Not Need External Validation. Janelle named it, then immediately told him it would fail because it had too many words. "I'm serious," Calder said, reorganizing donated costume bins at the art center. "I'm taking space, reflecting, not performing." Janelle looked at the bin in his hands. "You labeled that one Miscellaneous Capes by Emotional Tone. Organizing is not performing. You made a cape taxonomy. Children need systems. You need a nap." He set down the bin. The art center was quiet after hours. No kids shouting lines, no parents asking about schedules, no Janelle calling someone beloved and wrong in the same breath. Quiet had always made Calder feel like the stage lights had gone out and revealed him standing in costume with nowhere to go. "I miss her," he said. Janelle's face softened. "I know. I also think breaking up was right. Both can be true. I hate emotional complexity." "No, you don't. You host it. You just don't like when it invoices you." He laughed despite himself. Janelle sat on the edge of the stage. "What do you actually want?" "Mira, not a person, a behavior." He sighed. "I want to be believed, not approved. Believed." "Then say that." "I did." "Did you? Or did you make jokes around it until she had to find the sentence herself?" Calder looked away. Janelle was extremely inconvenient when correct. "Leora said I was exhausting," he said. Leora also thought brunch was a personality. She wasn't entirely wrong. "About brunch?" "About me." Janelle leaned forward. "You were not too much because someone didn't know what to do with you." He swallowed. "You perform," she said. "Yes, you charm, you make people comfortable. Sometimes it's generous, sometimes it's control. But under all that, Calder, you are not some unbearable secret." He stared at the scuffed floor. "What if Mira gets under it and doesn't like what's there?" "Then you'd survive." "That's bleak. That's adulthood." "Can I have a different adulthood?" "No." He laughed again, but it came out rough. That night, he went home and did not sing in the shower. The silence felt punitive, so he hummed one line, then stopped, because he could imagine Mira on the other side of the wall listening. Baroness Pickle stood in the bathroom doorway and stared. "I know," he said. "It's sad." She sneezed. "I'm working on it." He sat on the floor beside her and opened his dating profile drafts, the ones he had never used because they were too honest and not funny enough. Calder Vale, 33, community arts coordinator, terrible singer, good with nervous children and dramatic dogs. I make jokes when I am afraid people will leave. I am cheerful, but not always happy. I am learning the difference. He stared at it. His thumb moved to delete. He didn't. Instead, he saved it. Then, because he was trying very hard to become the sort of person who could be seen without tap dancing, he opened a new note and wrote, "Things I want Mira to know if I ever get brave." The first item came quickly. "I did not need you to be fearless. I needed to know you were choosing me while afraid." The second was harder. "I am afraid the real me is quieter and needier and less lovable than the version people clap for." He put the phone face down. Baroness Pickle rested her head on his knee. Through the wall came a soft sound. Not a knock. A hand, maybe. A presence. Calder placed his palm against the wall, too. Neither of them spoke. Chapter 14. Through the Wall. Mira did not plan a grand gesture. Grand gestures, she had decided after a week of thinking too much, were often just avoidance wearing better shoes. They let a person make one beautiful speech instead of doing the less cinematic work of being different afterward. Calder did not need spectacle from her. He had spent a lifetime turning pain into something an audience could enjoy. So she chose privacy. At 9:12 on Thursday night, after the building settled into its usual orchestra of pipes, footsteps, and someone in 3C dropping cutlery, Mira sat on the floor beside the shared wall. In front of her was her laptop. On the screen was the spreadsheet. Not hidden, not archived. Open. She selected every row that had ever tried to turn Calder into a manageable risk. The triple match notes, the chaos coefficient, the private review, the unforgivable question about love and insufficient data. Her finger hovered over delete. This time, she pressed it. The cells went blank. Mira stared at the empty grid. It did not feel like safety. It felt like grief. It also felt, under the grief, like air. She saved the file under a new name. What Fear Could Not Prove. .xlsx. Then she closed the laptop, placed both hands against the wall, and knocked 3 times. Friendly. Curious. Almost musical. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then Calder's voice came through, quiet and rough. Mira? Yes. A pause. Are you okay? That he asked that first nearly undid her. No, she said. But I think I'm being honest. On the other side, she heard movement. A soft thump. Maybe he had sat down too. Okay, he said. I deleted the rows about you. Silence. Mira closed her eyes. Not because you asked me to. Not because I think deleting a spreadsheet fixes what I did. I deleted them because I finally understood that I was calling it data when it was fear in a blazer. From the other side of the wall came the faintest sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. That's a very you sentence, he said. I know. I missed those. Her throat tightened. I need to say this without seeing your face, she said. If I see your face, I will try to manage the outcome. Okay. I love you. I loved you before I said it in the worst possible way. I loved you in the laundry room and at the fundraiser, and when you gave my emergency chocolate ceremonial respect. It deserved respect. Calder. Sorry, listening. She smiled through tears. I am scared, she said. I am scared that love can look stable and disappear anyway. I am scared that if I don't keep watch, the floor will collapse. I am scared that if I stop analyzing, I will become foolish. He did not interrupt. But I am more scared of becoming someone who mistakes distance for wisdom. I don't want to monitor you until fear approves you. I want to choose you while I'm afraid. The wall held them. Old plaster, bad paint. A ridiculous building that had broadcast all the wrong things and, for once, protected the right one. Calder's voice came back low. I wrote something. Mira pressed her palm harder to the wall. A profile. A warning label, technically. Specificity matters. You'd like it. Terrible singer. Good with nervous children and dramatic dogs. Makes jokes when afraid people will leave. Cheerful, but not always happy. Learning the difference. She closed her eyes. That's honest. I didn't post it. Good. Because I didn't want applause. The sentence entered her softly and stayed. "What did you want?" she asked. "For one person to know." Mira's tears slipped down her face. "I know," she said, "and I want to keep knowing, not as evidence, as you." The silence after that was not empty. It was full of both of them breathing. "Can I see you?" Calder asked. Mira wiped her face. "Yes." They opened their doors at the same time. The hallway was dim. No Gus, no Mrs. Alvarez, no audience. Just Calder in bare feet, eyes red, hair flattened on one side, looking like himself with nowhere to hide. Baroness Pickle stood behind him in a blue sweater, because apparently grief still required knitwear. Mira stepped into the hall. "Hi," Calder said. "Hi." "You deleted the rose?" "Yes." "Did you keep the file?" "Yes." His mouth twitched. "Good," he said. "Good? I don't want you to pretend you were never scared. I want you to remember you were scared and chose anyway." Mira made a sound that was half laugh, half heartbreak. "You are very annoying when evolved. I'm new at it." "It shows." He stepped closer. "I love you," he said. "I also need us to be honest sooner. Both of us. I can't joke my way around needing things and then punish you for not guessing." "Agreed." "And you can't put me in a secret workbook when you're terrified." "Agreed." "Shared document?" "Absolutely not." He smiled. "Conversation, then," he said. "Conversation." He held out his hand. Mira took it. The kiss was quiet. No applause, no folding chairs, no ancient shredder providing mechanical commentary. Just Calder's hand warm around hers, and the wall beside them, thin enough to have heard everything, solid enough to let them begin again. The next morning, Mira found a folded note taped to dryer 2. Reserved for Mira Venkataraman and Calder Vale, who are both learning that laundry room etiquette reveals the soul. Also, dryer 1 is making a sound like tax fraud. Gus. Mira laughed so loudly Calder heard it through the basement door. Chapter 15. No filter applied. 6 months later, the building nearly got famous for 72 hours. A dating app commercial wanted to film on Briar Street because the block had authentic romantic texture, which Mira said was industry language for peeling brick and bad parking. The production crew arrived with lights, cables, folding chairs, and a director who kept calling the stoop aspirational. Mrs. Alvarez charged them for use of her window. Gus charged them for breathing near the boiler room. Jonah tried to become an extra and was told he looked too aware of the camera, which was the most devastating thing that had ever happened to him, and therefore had to be mentioned only once an hour. Mira watched from the sidewalk with Calder beside her, Baroness Pickle between them in a red sweater that said casting director. "This is absurd," Mira said. "Deeply." No one meets organically on a stoop because an algorithm told them to believe again. Some people meet because an algorithm harasses them across 3 platforms, and then one of them floods the other's kitchen. That is niche, but authentic. She leaned into him, just enough. They were still themselves. This mattered. Love had not turned Mira into someone careless. It had not turned Calder into someone quiet and polished and easy to shelve. They still argued about laundry. Mira still made spreadsheets. Calder still sang badly. But the spreadsheets had changed. The most active one now was the Briar Street Laundry Fairness Index, a shared document that had begun as civic repair and evolved into a building-wide sport. Gus claimed not to understand it while enforcing it with terrifying precision. Mrs. Alvarez bribed people for premium slots with empanadas. Calder had once added a field called Emotional Dryer Readiness and been banned from editing for 3 days. Mira still tracked things when she was scared. The difference was that now, when she opened a file at midnight because her chest felt too tight, she told Calder. Sometimes he sat beside her while she made columns. Sometimes he asked what feeling the columns were holding. Sometimes she answered. Sometimes she didn't yet. And when Calder felt himself becoming bright in that brittle, performative way, he told her too. "I'm tap dancing," he'd say. "I see that. Please do not score it. I retired that metric. Growth. Don't make me regret it." On the day of the commercial shoot, Nisha arrived with iced coffee and a strong opinion about the lead actor's pants. Janelle arrived with 3 students who wanted autographs from anyone holding a clipboard. Gus pretended to hate all of it, and then gave the director notes on hallway acoustics. By evening, the building hosted an unofficial dinner with both Mira's and Calder's apartment doors propped open. It had started as convenience, 2 small rooms becoming 1 larger room, but Mira liked the symbolism too much to say so. Nisha knew, anyway. "Open doors," she whispered, nudging Mira at the stove. "It's ventilation." "Sure. The apartment gets warm. So does your icy little heart." "My heart is temperate. Your heart is wearing a cardigan." Across the room, Calder was telling Janelle about the commercial director's attempt to teach Baroness Pickle to look romantically hopeful. "She refused," he said. "She doesn't work without script approval." "Respect," Janelle said. Mira watched him laugh, not performing, not pleading, just there. Calder looked over and caught her watching. He came to the kitchen. "Hi," he said. "Hi." "You staring for data reasons or girlfriend reasons?" "Multifunctional." "Hot." "You have strange preferences." "Consistent ones." He kissed her temple. Later, after everyone left, after Nisha stole leftovers and Gus took the folding chairs and Mrs. Alvarez declared the rice excellent but emotionally understated, Mira and Calder stood in the hallway between their apartments. The building was finally quiet. Baroness Pickle slept across both thresholds, her body half in Mira's apartment and half in Calder's, as if physically enforcing the arrangement. "She's blocking traffic," Mira said. "She's building community. She's a tripping hazard. Love is risk." "Don't start." Calder grinned. Then, from somewhere upstairs, Jonah began humming the dating app commercial jingle he had apparently learned during filming. Mira looked at Calder. Calder looked at Mira. "No," she said. "I didn't do anything. You inspired this culture. I elevated it." The humming faded as Jonah's door closed, mercifully removing him from the emotional center of the evening. Calder leaned against his doorframe, eyes bright. "You could knock on the wall." "We're in the hallway." "You could knock on me." "That sentence needs revision." "Approved after?" Mira smiled. "Approved." He kissed her, and from inside Calder's apartment, Baroness Pickle sighed as though romance remained a burden she alone had the dignity to bear. When they broke apart, Calder started singing the jingle under his breath. Mira groaned, stepped into her apartment, and closed the door halfway. Through the wall, his voice rose, off-key and unashamed. For old time's sake, she picked up the broom. She knocked once. Calder stopped. Then she knocked twice more. 3 beats. Friendly. Curious. Almost musical. On the other side of the wall, Calder laughed. Mira leaned her forehead against the plaster, smiling. "You joining in?" he called. "Absolutely not," he began again. Mira lasted 8 seconds. Then, softly at first, and then with a total lack of technical merit, She sang with him through the wall. The building heard everything. For once, Mira didn't mind.
Thank you for listening. Please visit me at wynnvalentine.com to stay up to date. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review.